Welcome back. Today I'm going to be making a stitching pony. I say I do leather work, and I haven't really done much yet. It's going to be a super simple build. Basically milling up some lumber, shaping the head, gluing that all together, and then padding it with some leather. Really, this is the simplest type of stitching horse you can make. Anyone can make it, almost no experience. And super versatile. You can put it really anywhere that there's a lip. Let me show you how it's done. So like I said in the beginning, the first thing I did was I went about milling up this scrap piece of lumber. This is just from a crib that I made for my son, and there will be a video of that coming out soon. I'm not sure if it's going to be 1 or 2 parts, but it was pretty detailed, and I had this nice scrap left off, and it's really good red oak. So I didn't want it to go to waste, and I didn't know what to do with it. So I used this jointer just to get everything, nice and even and consistent, and that's all the finishing I did to this piece. I don't even know how thick I milled it, because that doesn't really matter. It just needs to have enough spring to grab, but still remain flexible. So you can use pine, you can use poplar, maple, whatever you have lying around. The material's not important, just the durability and springiness. So I just got a couple good edges, and I said that was good enough because it doesn't have to be perfect. And that's kind of the point of this whole build. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be anything exact. So I just used my table saw sled to slice this in half. Nice and simple. And it doesn't have to be perfect, just close enough. And then, I don't know where the scrap came from. Normally I know exactly where every scrap piece of lumber comes from my shop, but I just squared it off to about where I thought it would look nice. And I use the arms, I guess I'll call them the red oak, to determine the size of the slot you need to cut out here. Now, you don't actually have to cut the slot out. I just thought it would make it a little bit nicer, a little bit easier, because you don't want too much of a pinch that it'll mar the piece that you're working on. So I wanted to keep the head kind of bulky, but still not have such a pinch. That's why I did this step, but it's completely not necessary. You could just use thinner lumber or put a spacer on the bottom, whatever. Now this doesn't leave a perfect edge, but it gets you pretty close. I don't know if you can hear it, but that's my kids screaming in the background. And I cut these slots before I cut it in half, just make it a little bit easier to work with. Again, not really necessary. You could do this from 2 pieces to start with. You could do them from hardwood, softwood, whatever. I just used what I had lying around. The point of this is quick and easy. I think this whole project from start to finish only took me like 2 hours or something, not including glue time, dry time for the glue. And here I'm just cleaning up that slightly imperfect, perfect face to get a better glue surface. Just a nice sharp chisel. This is actually for fine carving, but works well enough. Now this is important. Breaking all the corners over. Again, you want this so that you don't mar anything up. So I rounded over the front and back edges completely. And then after this glues up, because I want a parallel surface to glue on, I actually come back and put a bevel going from the arm up to the point. I'll explain that later at the outro. Here I'm coming back to do that after it's glued up. screwing up the back just because I can. And here's what I'm saying. I'm beveling from where that arm intersects up to the point face. Because you want as you clamp it, the faces will turn in towards each other. And if you don't have that bevel, it'll open up at the tip. But by having that bevel, keeps the tip closed and gives you a longer clamp area without marring anything, which is the whole point of this, is to hold it without marring it. And the more surface area you have to grip, the better off you are. Now this is an arm from one of the couches. It's not really important where it came from. These are really high quality, expensive leather couches back in their day, but they've broken down and gotten kind of ratty over the years. It happens. They're almost as old as I am, so, but the leather's still good. It's really good leather. So, I just mark it out roughly. I'd like to take a moment here to thank all of my Patreons over at patreon.com. It's in large part of their support that I'm able to bring this content to you. Their donations help me pay for materials, new tools, rent, and help support my family as a whole. So if you think what I do is worth more than just a like or subscribe, go over to patreon.com/Knightsmith and sign. Even $1 a month really helps. Use a straight edge and a nice sharp blade to cut everything down. The key is the sharp blade, really. Not necessarily straight edge, the sharp blade. If it's even slightly starting to dull, you'll start catching, and instead of cutting, you'll start to rip. And you definitely don't want that. So I'm leaving this in just because it is technically an option. Nailing the leather down, I wouldn't recommend it. I have no idea why I did this, because I have a staple gun. I've used it to staple wood to wood, So I don't know why I didn't think it would hold for the leather, but... So the process here is to hammer it in halfway, cinch, twist the nail over, and then hammer it down the rest of the way to provide like a little grip arm. It works. Technically it is possible, and it does work, but you don't want that. So I just came back and I stapled it. Alright guys, now what'd you think? Like I said, super, super simple. Anyone can do this. There's almost no hardware involved. A staple gun, a sander. Everything else you can do with the inlay with the chisel. You don't really even have to do the inlay. The only important thing is that these faces are pretty much even right at the tip, so they can pinch. And you pat it with leather. Now, I stapled mine on. Had a little faux pas with the trying to nail it on. I don't even know why I thought that would be a good idea. I left these ends loose just so they wouldn't mar. And you saw I shaped them down. Because you really just want to pinch right where you're working. And, just keep everything together and in line. And easy for you to stitch. I mean, that's really it. This is all scrap material. This is, the leather is just from a couch I used to have. It was my grandparents'. You saw that in my last apartment. So I've skinned those. So I have all this nice white, and it's really high quality leather. I need to do something with it. So I made a stitching horse, and this is going to be my next project. This was just a scrap from the crib. The one rough side. You saw me mill that up. Again, super easy. You really don't even have to do that step. It just makes everything a little bit nicer, a little bit more even. And all this pressure is just from a clamp holding the bottom steady. And then there'll be a clamp somewhere up here, just to give you a little bit more pressure. And that's also why I went back and beveled these faces. Instead of having them parallel, I beveled them back. So when they pinch, it's more even. And it doesn't start opening up at the top. I mean, like, super simple. Let me show you how it works here. Just take a clamp, get your heads even. Clamp that down. Let's say we're going to be working on this. Whatever. Stitch on this. Open it up, put your workpiece in. it'll initially clamp just a little bit, just from, you know, naturally wanting to close. Take a secondary clamp, put it on there. Boom, that's not going anywhere. So it's very simple. It'll keep everything nice in line, super cheap, super easy. I mean, what else is there more to say about it? There's no finish. I did no sanding except to, you know, to shape it. I don't know what else I can say. Super easy clamp, super easy project, and a great way to start building up your leatherworking arsenal. Thanks again for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you. Hit subscribe if you haven't yet. And thank you for helping make this world better, one kerf at a time, and I'll see you later.